Welcome to another edition of Chess Chat, a program brought to you live from the Workers Credit Union studio at Fitchburg Access Television. I am your host, George Merijanian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club meets every Wednesday evening from 6:30 to 10:30 in rooms 142 and 143 of the McKay Complex at the university. And with me today for this episode of Chess Chat is once again our award-winning director, Darren Dame of Fitchburg, who is now in his 16th consecutive year directing Chess Chat. And assisting him in the control room and behind the camera is fellow resident and longtime Wachusett Chess Club member, Brian Bigelow. And sitting across from me is my longtime associate and friend, chess author, photographer, Wachusett Chess Club statistician, and assistant webmaster, active tournament player, my co-host, Dave Couture of Westminster. Hello, Dave.
Hi, George.
Well, Dave, this edition of Chess Chat, we're going to chat or talk about a program that we could have done a few months ago, but we delayed it because we had some other very interesting programs to present to our viewers. And it is a program about the Wachusett Chess Club Championship, which we conducted. When did we conduct the Club Championship? Do you remember that? Has it been that long ago?
It's been that long. I'd say, what, 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah, actually, it was back. We started in September of 2021. It ended in October.
Okay.
And we do have a club championship, a champion. And we had 8 players, and you were one of them. And we're going to actually present to our viewers who the participants were in this year's club championship. It ended up actually being a round robin, but the format we used was what we call a Swiss, but which in essence became a round robin, where each player played the other player once in the tournament. So let's start actually with a player, a former club champion, who came in last place, 8th place in this year's championship. And Darren actually has a photo of him. On the left, the fellow with the beard, the very big beard there, is Gary Broussard. He actually was co-champion, club co-champion in 2018.
With Roger.
With Roger, yeah, right. And what's interesting is Gary's having a birthday coming up in about a week and a half. I'm going to divulge his name and the age. He's going to turn 65 at the end of February.
The secret's out.
All right. So anyway, that was Gary Broussard, who did not have a good tournament. He only scored a half a point, out of 7 games played.
It happens.
Now, who came in next to last? Let's go to the next person in the standings. The fellow sitting on the left, red hair, I believe, yes? That is Ralph McNeilage. Ralph McNeilage, who is now living in Framingham. He was living in Worcester, and unfortunately, because of the distance, living in Framingham, he stopped coming to the club. And I can understand why, because that's a long trip. So he finished actually in 7th place in the club championship. Now, who came in 6th place? Well, we don't have to go to a photo. Let's actually have a nice shot of you.
Bring it in tight, right?
Bring a tight shot of Dave Couture. You actually finished in the club championship, 6th place. But you've played in previous club championships. So you're a veteran of Wachusett Chess Club championships. Okay. Now, who came in going up the standings? Let's go up actually to Mike Camiso. Yes. Now, let me tell you a few things about Mike Camiso. Mike Camiso, when we went into pandemic mode in 2020, Mike Camiso, who happens to live in Brookline, New Hampshire, by the way, took over and actually saved our club by running online tournaments for the Wachusett Chess Club. He is currently running the tournament we are running right now at the club. He's a certified tournament director for the U.S. Chess Federation. So he's really one of the most valuable people at the club.
Absolutely. Many thanks to Mike.
Thanks to Mike Camiso. He's done a lot for the club. Okay, who comes actually up as we go up the pecking line here? We have another player, Steve Murray, who lives in Ayr, but he runs a chess club in Westford. He actually has an affiliate, a chess affiliate, the Westford Chess Club, that runs, and you play at his club. in Westford. Is it 63 Powers Road?
Yeah, it's Powers Road. It's British Delights is the...
Yes, he is involved in import. He's an export business.
British imports, yep.
In Westford, but he runs the club, the Westford Chess Club, on Monday nights, every Monday night. And he also runs, does he run online?
Something online, yeah.
He also runs the Air Online Chess Club.
Okay.
So Steve Murray is also another certified tournament director and club organizer.
Yep.
And he came in actually in 4th place.
We should also mention he had the biggest rating gain of anybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, he had a very impressive, very good tournament for Steve Murray. Now, who came in 3rd place? The next photo we're going to see is Larry Gladding. Larry Gladding has many credentials. Among them, he's a 3-time club champion.
Right.
He was co-champion twice, and actually after the years that he did that, it was actually in 1998 with me, 98, and he also did it in 1992 with Dave Allen, who's a Fitchburg lawyer.
Yep.
But he did it clear. Larry did it in 2009 clear. He was the single champion in 2009. Now let's go to the player who came in runner-up in this year's club, or actually the 2021 club championship. Is actually, we have a photo of Roger Capallo.
Right.
Roger Capallo on the right, standing on the right, he's actually standing next to Gary Brissett, who we presented first. Roger Capallo actually is a 2-time club champion, actually a co-champion. He was co-champion in 2016 and 2018. He is a nationally renowned, probably world-renowned retired radio astronomer. He is well-known in the field of astronomy, is Roger Capallo, and again, he's a 2-time club champion. Now, we've held off the suspense to our viewers. Who is our club champion? We're going to present a photo of a 3-time club champion, and that's Ray Paulson of Lowell. And he has won it, again, as I say, 3 times. The years he won it he was co-champion Roger Capallo in 2017, and then this year he won it, I'm almost saying this year, because I'm thinking,
that's right,
but it is actually the 2021 championship. Remember, we had no club championship in 2020 because of the pandemic. Now, Ray Paulson also plays at other clubs. He plays at the Billerica Chess Club. He's played at the Newburyport Chess Club. So he's a very active chess player. And again, we congratulate Ray Paulson for being our reigning club champion. And he will have to defend his title in September and October of 2022 when we run our club championship then. Okay, now we are going to present to our viewers, Dave, a very interesting game played in the 2021 club championship between Ralph McNeilage and Steve Murray. You found this game. You selected this game, and I agree with you.
Short game.
A short game, a very instructive game. And who had white in the game that we're going to present to our viewers?
So this is Ralph McNeilage with white.
Okay, so what did Ralph McNeilage, and I believe this was played in round 2 of the tournament.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
It was early in the tournament.
Second week,
So Ralph McNeilage played what as his first move in that game?
So he opens with d4.
Okay. A very good move. We presented that scores of time, many times. It's one of the 2 good moves. E4.
2 most popular, E4 and D4.
E4. Either one of those central pawns is a very popular move.
And often leads to quiet games, but this is not a quiet game.
This is not a quiet game? Okay, you mean there's going to be explosives here?
Yes, yes.
Okay. To which Steve Murray responded with the knight on g8, moving to f6. He develops a piece, the first piece. And of course, he stops white from playing a pawn to e4 by doing that. Okay, so now what does Ralph do on his second move?
Very standard second move, c4, helping to control the center. Now he can move the knight out and not block it.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now Steve Murray, move 2, plays g6, the pawn to g6. Well, he's already, with that move, doesn't he actually indicate what his plan is now? As far as the deployment of this dark square bishop?
Fianchetto the bishop.
A fianchetto. And again, to our viewers who don't know what the term fianchetto, that's a chess term where the placement of any bishop along the long diagonal is called a fianchetto. And of course, we know players who use the anglicized pronunciation and say fianchetto, But if you're true to the Italian language, you would pronounce it fianchetto.
Yeah.
It's a
I learned
fianchetto.
that from you.
You learned that from
I
me?
used to say fianchetto.
Okay, well, I'm teaching a little
That's right.
Italian as we go along
That's right.
here. Okay, so now what did the Ralph do on his third move?
Knight to c3. Again,
Okay.
very standard.
Right, and it looks like he may be preparing the advance to pawn to e4. That could be a threat.
Right.
Yeah, that certainly
Right.
is a threat. Now, Steve now plays, instead of playing the bishop g7, which he could have done, he plays d5 immediately, okay? Now, after 3, we've already played 3 moves.
Yep.
Do we actually have an opening that now has a name?
We do.
We do,
We
after
do.
3 moves?
After 3 moves, the Grunfeld.
This is known as, yes, the Grunfeld.
Yeah.
Now, can I say a little bit about
Sure.
the Grunfeld?
Sure. We have time.
Because this is rather significant. This Grunfeld defense, also called the Grunfeld Indian defense, was named after an Austrian grandmaster by the name of Ernst Grunfeld, or Ernest Grunfeld. Remember, we had at the club, the only Ernest we had at the club was
Right.
Ernest von Dreyer. Ernst, he was born Ernst von Dreyer. But Ernst Grunfeld, Austrian, who lived in Vienna, he introduced this move, this defense, in 1922, exactly 100 years
Okay.
ago.
Cool.
This move was introduced into tournament chess. So it's rather significant
Yeah.
that we're using this in this game. All right, what did Ralph do in response to d5?
He develops with knight f3.
Okay, right, very good, another developing move.
Yep.
It's always good, it's important to get development pieces as fast as possible. Okay, Steve now played
Steve, yeah.
bishop g7. That was his response, which is only natural. If he played g6, he's vacated that g7 square for the bishop.
Yeah.
Okay, Ralph's move. What does he do?
So now comes the fireworks. This is a
Ooh.
not very often played move. H4, very aggressive.
What is this? Have we
I don't
seen?
think we have a name for it.
There is no name for this.
There is no name.
But it's certainly a sign of aggression to be
Right.
advancing.
He's looking to rip apart the king side over there.
Yeah, I've never seen this before. I mean, again, if it doesn't have
Yep.
a name, but eventually, maybe one day it'll have a name.
The McNeilage attack.
You're right.
Yep.
Maybe it will be. All right. So what does Steve Murray do in response to h4? He says, "Okay, I'm going to take this pawn on c4. D takes c4 is Steve Murray's move.
Yeah.
All right. What does Ralph do now on his?
Ralph plays, a good move, probably the most obvious move. He plays e4.
Okay.
So he's got both pawns in the center. Now he's attacking the pawn on c4.
So he's starting to regain the pawn
Regain
on
the
c4.
pawn, yep.
Okay. All right. So what does actually Steve Murray do? He says, okay, I'm now going to attack that pawn on d4 and hit it twice
Yep.
with c5. The pawn to c5, we have now the pawn and the queen attacking here, but of course it's defended properly
Yep.
because both the knight and the queen
Right.
by white is defending that pawn on d4. Okay. All right, so what does Ralph do now on his seventh move?
So Ralph basically ignores the attack and just pushes on d5.
Right, okay, and still threatening to regain that pawn on c4
Yep.
with the bishop.
Right.
All right. Now here's a very interesting move. I like this next move by Steve Murray. He now plays the pawn on b7 to b5.
Yeah.
Now wait a minute, hold it. There's nothing defending that pawn on b5. We should actually show, if we just concentrate on the board, we should show our viewers why that pawn is poisoned.
Okay.
That's a poisoned pawn.
Right.
What happens if actually white would say, hey,
If he takes.
I want to win that pawn. I'll
Yep.
win the pawn.
Yep.
Is that good or bad?
It's going to be bad.
It's
so
bad. Let's show our viewers why.
Viewers can pause here and
Yes.
see if they can figure it out.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
Okay.
They paused it.
Oh, we gave them enough time?
gave them enough
Our
time to
viewers
pause. Yes.
Okay, we gave them enough nanoseconds.
Yep.
All right. Here's what's wrong with that move, winning the pawn. Greed in chess gets punished.
Yeah.
This is what black would do in response to that. The queen goes to a5,
Yeah.
checks the king,
Yeah.
but also attacks the
Attacks,
undefended
right.
knight,
Yeah.
forcing the knight to move back
Yeah.
to c3.
To c3.
And now black can take this pawn on e4 with the knight.
Right.
The knight cannot take back because it's pinned.
Right.
We now have a triple
attack, so-
on that. Yes.
Yeah.
And things are not going to look good for white,
Right, exactly.
allowing this.
So.
All right, so let's put things back. So this pawn on b5, black pawn, is poisoned, cannot be taken.
Yep.
And Ralph McNeilage understands that. And what he does is say, hey,
Pushes on.
I'm just going to just carry on with my
Continues the
aggression
attack.
on the king's side.
Yep.
And Steve Murray's reaction is, hey, go ahead, right
Yep.
ahead. I'm going to castle right on the side you're attacking.
Right.
So he castles. Kingside castling by Steve Murray on his
And that
eighth
move's
move.
actually, all these moves have, even though it's a rare opening, there's still games that have been played with this in the
they've been-
database. Yep.
So there are people who have played this.
Played this before.
All right,
And
okay.
then the next move also.
All right.
So he continues the attack.
H takes G6.
H takes G6.
Okay. Now, when I was learning chess many, many moons ago,
Yep.
I was always taught on recaptures like this, you would capture toward the center. But in this case, Steve Murray does not capture this,
Right.
does not recapture the pawn on G6 with the H pawn.
Right.
He takes with the F pawn.
Right.
Now, why did he do that? Why did Steve Murray decide, I'm going to take, now F takes G6? Because I think I know why he decided that.
I think, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no,
Well, I was thinking mainly to open up this file for the rook.
absolutely.
Right.
You and I agree that that was the reason why he did it.
So that's an important chess principle, right? You have to know when to break the
Yes.
general rules.
Right. There is
General rules are just general rules.
Right.
They're not
And
always true.
No, and sometimes you have to break them.
Right.
Yeah, depending on the position. Okay, so he took with the F pawn, and now what did it's Ralph's
Again,
move? What did he do?
Interesting move, but this has been played before. Rook to H4.
So he's adding further defense on the pawn
Yep.
on E4, over defending that.
Yep.
Well, now actually there could be Steve Murray realizes, wait a minute, I don't want to lose that pawn now. Now with this rook defending this,
Right.
we don't have this little tactical trick.
Exactly. Right. So now
So-
he has to defend it.
Now he defends it. He plays the pawn to A6. So now, wait a minute, he's a pawn ahead.
Yep.
White has given up a pawn.
Yep.
Yeah. So how does Ralph continue here?
So this is the first move that's not in the databases. The move that's probably better is
Oh,
E5.
to attack the knight?
Attacking the knight, and then after the knight moves, pushing this pawn again. So now this knight doesn't have anywhere to go.
So he missed that? You mean
so
Ralph?
he
You're telling
missed
me that
that.
Ralph missed
Yeah.
that strong move?
But this, I mean, this is an obvious.
Well, it is attacking this pawn, threatening to win
develop,
that pawn.
attack the pawn. Yeah.
Develop a piece, attack the pawn. But it looks like that's a very strong move. He could
Right.
have played,
Yep.
but he missed it.
Yep.
He didn't realize how strong that was. All right, so after bishop e3, well, now because this pawn is now under attack,
Yeah.
Steve Murray now plays the knight on b8
Yeah.
to d7 and defends the pawn so
Right.
it can't be taken. Okay.
Right.
What does Ralph McNeilage do now on his...
So now he does play E5.
Yeah, it's
but
coming
it's
to...
not,
yeah.
not as good now
Not as
because this
good.
knight's already developed. So
Right.
after it gets attacked, it's got a good square to go to.
All right, so that knight on f6, which is under attack, has to retreat
Yeah.
or escape,
Yeah.
and actually he decides to come back
Yeah.
to e8. Knight e8 is actually Steve Murray's move. That was his 12th move. All right, now what does Ralph do?
Now he makes a bit of a mistake. He plays E6.
Oh.
It looks like it's really cramping things, but in fact,
Yes.
this knight's going to be able to sit on this square safely. This knight will come here safely.
So he was better off just keeping that pawn there
Yeah.
and controlling the f6
Yeah.
square. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that knight on d7, which is attack, can get back on f6 on the
Right.
f6 square.
Right.
Okay. All right. So that's a mistake. That was a mistake on Ralph's part by prematurely advancing the pawn to e6 and attacking that knight. All right. So now what does Ralph do?
Continues the attack, knight to G5.
Okay. Now I see that. Ooh, this is. Is he threatening and
maybe,
sinking in,
Yep.
attacking the
Sure.
queen?
Yep.
That looks like a threat. Knight G5. Well, because of that threat, Steve plays the knight on E8 to D6, and he says,
Yep.
"No, you're not sinking in here.
Right, exactly.
I'm challenging your control of that F7 square by playing knight D6." Okay. Now what does Ralph do?
So Ralph grabs that
Oh,
pawn
yeah, that's
on
right.
C5. It's still sitting there.
So he finally got his pawn back.
Finally got his pawn
So
back. yeah.
materially, it's even.
Yep.
But positionally, it's not even. Yeah.
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 His king is still sitting in the center.
I know.
here,
Look at
and-
that. I mean, yeah, he's still king. He had not. Yeah, right. The king is stuck in the center right now. Still is. All right. So what are we doing now? He took the pawn on c5. So now this poor little light squared bishop. That's a problem.
Yep.
And the only square it can be developed to is B7, bishop E7.
So another fianchetto.
And then yeah, so we have a double fianchetto.
Yep.
Which is actually seen in a number of games
Yep.
In chess. All right, now what does Ralph do?
Bishop takes the knight on D6.
All right, bishop takes that on D6, and of course Steve recaptures with the queen. We take with the queen takes D6. All right, so we have a exchange of bishops.
Right, so now that knight is gone, and no longer defending F7, now he can sink the knight in.
Ooh, and attacks the
F7,
queen.
Attacking the queen.
Now, where should that queen go? Where is that queen best positioned in this position? Well, what Steve Murray did was play the queen over to B6.
Yep.
Hey, look at this. Look at where he has his eye on.
Yeah.
That's a square that's nice to put pressure on,
Yep.
especially when you have this rook
Sure.
on it's closed, right? It's blocked.
Right, but it could open up.
It could, if you can open up this file, you're having a rook and a queen on this F2 pawn.
Right.
That could present some big problems for white. All right, so with the queen on B6, so now what does Ralph do?
Ralph continues his attack. I mean, I guess a lesson to be learned here is that you know, he's not developed fully. Black is, and he's attacking before he's fully developed. So
Right, exactly.
that's
He still
usually
has
not a good idea.
He's got at least 3 pieces undeveloped here.
Right. Yep.
So he's attacking. All right. Well, the last piece. In fact, Steve Murray is now going to develop his last piece. The rook on A8. He brings over to this file, the C file, C8.
Right.
So that's where he positions that
So
rook.
it looks like he's thinking, you know, pushing this pawn, pushing this, just opening things up.
That rook actually defends this pawn, so he can advance, so he can threaten to advance to B4 and attack the knight. All right. So what are we doing here? What does Ralph do?
Ralph continues the attack.
Oh, he's really bent on advancing here on the king side. So that knight is now under attack. Where does that knight go? The knight
now
actually.
this is a key
This
spot, right? This is where if Steve had just grabbed this pawn here with the knight.
Oh yes.
Now that pawn's undefended.
Oh yes.
The queen would be attacking it.
Yeah, and we also have the attack. The bishop attacking.
The bishop would have been
attack
attacking
over here.
this.
So Ralph, I mean Steve Murray had a very strong move.
Very strong move. So he could have
actually
won it a little earlier.
Actually shortened this game.
The game. Yep.
But instead of playing the knight takes D5, he played what? He said, wait a minute, my knight is under attack, so I've got to save it. He brings it back to E8.
Yep.
So he redeploys it to E8, knight E8. That was his 19th move. Now what does Ralph do?
Finally develops his queen, adding it to the attack.
Oh, yeah, so it also adds defending here, too.
Defending, yeah.
But of course, it wasn't under attack except by the bishop. But it's adequately defended now with the queen on F3. All right, so now we go. All right, so what does Steve do now? He says, you know, I want to redeploy this knight that I had to retreat because I was under attack, and I'm going to bring it to D6.
Yeah,
knight D6.
Nice square.
Oh, look at this.
Right.
He's now attacking this knight on F7 twice.
Three times, right?
In fact, 3 times.
Yep.
Yeah.
The rook, the knight, and the king.
Yes, right. So, okay, this is big problems here. So what does Ralph do now on his 21st move?
Ralph ignores that and just continues developing. So bishop H3.
Bishop H3. Okay.
Bringing that into the game.
Okay. Now, how does Steve continue? Yeah, he's going to play his queen over to A5. Now it pins the knight.
Pins the knight. Boy, it looks like this pawn's going to get pushed. And
now
then
he's
the other
threatening
one,
to advance the pawn to B4, forcing the knight to move. All right, so what does Ralph do after Queen A5? What does he do?
Bishop G4.
Now I don't understand this move.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
This is very. This is actually a baffling move.
Yeah.
Don't know why he would play that, but he did.
Yeah.
I mean. Again, and of course, it's very dangerous to castle, especially with these pawns here.
And sure enough,
Ralph must have realized this is too dangerous to castle queenside. So after bishop G4, Steve Murray carries out B4, attacks the knight on C3. The knight has to save itself. Does it?
Does it? Well, I think Ralph realizes things are looking desperate, so he continues the attack.
Well, wait a minute. Yes.
Queen H3.
Now he has the queen and the rook on the H file.
Right.
Attacking down here.
Right.
In fact, he's actually some nasty threats himself here.
Right.
Threatening here, and also if he follows through with the rook, he's threatening mate here.
He's threatening mate. Yeah.
White is now threatening checkmate here
Yep.
by playing the queen over to H3, but he's allowing this to be taken.
Right.
So Steve Murray now takes the knight.
Yeah. So Steve, is obviously calculated that
He's probably calculated all this.
that he can do this quicker than Ralph can checkmate him.
Yeah. So he took the B pawn takes on C3, wins a knight.
Yep.
And what does Ralph do? Ralph actually carries. Oh, Ralph now took back.
Captures back. I mean, there's all kinds of threats here. I mean,
Oh, yes.
this pawn can capture here with check attacking the rook.
And promote to a queen.
Promote to a queen. So
Queen. Oh yeah. So this is this is nasty. This is a nasty position. So after B takes C3, Steve says, okay, queen takes the pawn, C3 check. I'm forking the king and the rook.
King and the rook, and there's also this bishop supporting.
Oh, look at this. Yeah, the bishop's here. Oh, yeah. So what does Ralph do now after queen takes C3? The king has to make a run for it, doesn't it?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
The king has to get out of check.
So king to E2.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. What is all this about? You mean
he's already.
Yeah.
Steve's already won a piece.
He's won a piece. So
he's won a piece.
Time to simplify.
Well, yeah.
Well,
not just simplify, but he's going to exchange the queens.
That's right. Exchange. Queen takes H3. Remember, the queen was protected by the bishop on G7, and now the rook takes
H3.
Okay.
And now.
Okay, maybe we're going too fast for our.
Sorry.
I should be paying more attention to our graphics.
Okay, so rook. So rook takes H3.
Rook takes H3. And now Steve Murray says, thank you for the rook.
Right. So now
bishop takes.
He's up a piece and a rook.
Right, a piece. Wow. So bishop takes A1.
He's up a bishop and a rook.
And what does Ralph do now?
So sort of a last ditch, knight to G6 check.
Check. And of course, all Steve does is bring the king up like this. Well, what he did get, Ralph got in was a spy check. He says, hey, at least I got in one check in the game.
Sure, yeah.
And then resign after king G7.
It's like it doesn't hurt to play it. Now he looked at it and realized, there's...
Yeah. So again, this is one of the interesting games from the 2021 Club Championship. And again, we expect to see Steve Murray again. I think, as you pointed out, he gained the most number of rating points from the Club Championship.
Yep.
And I expect he will qualify for the Club Championship in September of this year. And again, we commend Steve Murray, but we also commend Ray Paulson.
Ray Paulson, yeah. And one thing I would say about Ray Paulson is just how resilient he is, because in my game against him, I was actually winning.
Yeah.
I was up the exchange, and I think I was ahead on the clock too.
Yeah.
But he ended up winning.
Right.
Even though I had a winning position. We got into a bit of a time scramble.
Right.
And in the time scramble, he was just unstoppable. He just made no mistakes.
Well, again, Ray Paulson faced 7 opponents. There was 8-player round robin. The only player he lost a single game, and that was to Roger.
Roger, yeah.
And Roger told me after they played actually rather early in the tournament. He said, Roger told me, he says, if I had lost to Ray, I would have withdrawn from the tournament.
Yeah.
I was hoping he would do that.
Yeah.
But because Ray had 6 points out of 7, and Roger had 5.5.
Yeah, right behind him.
So right behind him. So again, they are the two of the strongest players of the club.
Absolutely.
And again, we expect this year to see some really heavy action. So anyways, we hope our Chess Chat fans enjoyed the game that Dave and I presented to you. We're going to have a special guest on the next edition of Chess Chat. We're going to have an international master, Jim Rizzatano, visiting us for the next edition of Chess Chat. Stay tuned for that. It should be an exciting show.